Hi everyone, it's Jackie at Spare Room Studio. I'm back to finish this page, which is called Hidden, and it is in Pirates by RJ Hampson. It's an older book, and I'm going to finish this page with Artex pencils and Prismacolor and Polychromos that I have in this pencil case here. It's one of my pencil cases that I leave out pretty much all the time, and is always handy to me, whereas some of my other sets have been put away. That's all due to my lack of storage space and lack of working space that I have. So what I'm going to do is come back and finish this page here. I started it yesterday and got quite a way into it, but felt that I need to finish it off with some pencils, and I didn't have the pencils with me there yesterday. So I'm going to use a combination of the three pencils. I've got them in this pencil case together because they do all seem to work well together. And the Prismacolors are just open stock that I've bought. They're not a full set. The Artex is the full set. I'm not sure, is that 100 or 120 or something in the full set from Artex. And the Polychromos I have are just open stock. And there's a few other random ones in there as well. So what I like to do is keep those random open stock purchases together, and that's just the way that I've got this pencil case set up. And what I'm doing here is I'm just going over some of the areas where I want a lighter highlight first with the Prismacolor white. It's my favourite white pencil to use because I find it pretty much goes over everything. And all I'm doing is picking out the areas that I want to have the most highlight in, or that I want to lighten up what I've done with the alcohol markers. So I thought I'd just finish this off on camera and show you how I would go about completing this particular page, seeing as I did so much of it yesterday on camera. So I want this pirate, because he's sitting in a cave and he's a skeleton, I want his clothes to look a little bit sort of faded and dusty and past their best. Now, I did mention yesterday that I'm colouring this page as part of the hashtag Pirates for Poet. That's Poet Spice on Instagram, and I will link the YouTube channel in the description of this video. And I think I did a couple of pages last year for the same hashtag, and Poet's doing it again this year. I like it as a theme. I think it's a bit of fun, and this particular book is a lot of fun. I don't see people colour in it very often. It doesn't pop up on Instagram or YouTube very much. It's a few years old now, one of RJ Hampson's earliest books. So this would be the side here of the chest, and yeah, I'm thinking that will come down there, so this would be the front. So just, to get started with working out where I want some of the highlights to be. And you'll see that I'm not going to be going for a finely blended look all over here. I'm going to be quite rough in parts because I just want some texture there. Now I will more than likely come back to that white again. This is Putty Beige in the Prismacolor. This is one of my favourite neutral colours in the Prismacolor range. I just find it really, really handy. It works for so many different things. What I'm looking to do at the moment, just in these areas, is pretty much just getting a little bit of variety in the texture. I don't want it to look highly blended at this point. And at this point too, I'm not particularly meaning to just choose Prismacolor, although there's no reason not to use the Prismacolor. That's just a battery operated pencil sharpener that I'm using. I found at the moment that I put some new blades in there and new batteries, and it's been sharpening my Prismacolors up quite well, and the Artex. I'd been having some trouble with the Tagal sharpener that I was using. It was breaking all the leads. I think perhaps maybe the blades in that one have seen better days, but since I changed over to the new blades and the battery operated sharpener, I haven't had nearly as much breakage and problems with the sharpening as I was having with my little Tagal sharpener, which is a shame because that one is handy to have. It has the different size openings for different length points that you want on your core. So now I'm just using, this is Indigo Blue from Prismacolor. I'm just using that to start establishing a few of the really darker areas that I want. So where the marker wasn't dark enough, that was really just a mid-tone that I was putting in for the beginning or the base of the page with the alcohol markers. I'm now using the coloured pencil to come in and start working out some of the details. I think it's a sort of page where you want some areas that are going to be very finely detailed, and others like this where you want texture. You're telling a story basically with the illustration. And you want to sort of convey as much information as you can to your viewer through the use of, colour and texture. I'm still a little bit confused with what's going on with some of this detail, but hey ho, we'll leave that as it is. Excuse me, I still have a frog. The seasons are changing here where I live. We are now sort of heading into spring. Sounds like I could do with some new batteries in there. The only trouble with these battery operated sharpeners is that they do go through batteries very quickly. So yeah, back to what I was saying, we're going into spring here now. And spring is always so changeable, isn't it, with the very cold evenings and mornings sometimes, but beautiful days in between. You're a bit up and down with what to wear, and I have quite an old house. The front part of my house is double brick and quite old, and it takes a bit of time for that front part to warm up and to cool down after heat, but it takes a while to warm up, and so sometimes we're actually still wearing jumpers and hoodies and things in the house, even though it's beautiful and sunny outside. We still need it on inside. So I'm hoping to get this page finished and then maybe go and sit outside in the garden, encourage the dog to be out in the garden, and get a little bit of vitamin D without burning. So I'm just using a variety of different greens here just to change up how the alcohol marker looks. I don't want a regular flat saturated look, because these things are hidden in a cave and they'd be old and, you know, feeling the effects of the elements. So I'm just going to try and create that little bit of texture and make it look sort of a little bit grungy, maybe, not so perfect. Okay, so that's a good start on there. Now this is Artex and it's black. I decided yesterday that I wanted this strapping on the chest to be like old cast iron or old metal. So I used a grey as the mid-tone for the base, and I've now used a bit of white there to get some highlights going, and now I'm using the black to darken up those areas that need to be more black. Add in a little bit of shadow for some definition in places, and basically just make it look a little bit more textured and worn. Certainly, you know, not the sort of thing that's going to look perfect, and hence I'm not being very careful with my blending. I'm being quite heavy-handed in parts. I'm going to leave all the lines and texture and so on in the paper. I'm going to leave all that showing. I'm not going to blend it at all. Now I'm thinking in between each of these sort of sections where there's brackets and so on, there'll be some bits that are darker in shadow and some bits that are going to be more forward and reflecting light and so on. And the same here on the rings. I'm going to suggest that some bits are on the top or closer to us, and some bits are further away, and for that I'll just grab that white Prismacolor again and just very lightly add some white in there. It's not like he's going to have a spotlight on him, so I don't really want the, you know, the highlights to look like it's a reflected light on a shiny surface. It's just really helping to describe the objects rather than be a bright reflection as such. Might leave that out because I do come back to that quite frequently. Now I'm wanting a darker brown, so I'm going to go for a dark umber in the Artex pencil, and I'm just going to put some texture on here. I wanted these to look like they are old leather boots. So leather is quite smooth. Not necessarily a reflective surface, depending on how highly polished it is. And I'm guessing, you know, a pirate's not necessarily going to have highly polished boots, is he? He's a bit of a rough and ready sort of chap, even though he's dapper with his red pants there, red stripes. Now this one is a Jazz Art pencil, which was a small set that I got in a craft store, and this is like a cream, so it's going to give me that lighter highlight but not as bright as the white. Just going to tone down that white a little bit on there. Some of these colours are going to be so subtle, I don't know if they're actually going to show up on the camera that much. I'm also going to use that to lighten up the barrel of the gun here a little bit. Sometimes these colours, you know, they're building up so subtly that it's hard to actually see it on screen. But when I show you the finished picture at the end, you should see it, and certainly on a photograph for Instagram it will show up. Now, I'm going to actually use some silver on that buckle eventually. The tan, I'm going to just use a little bit of colour in there to accentuate the tan strap that he's got there. This is sienna brown. I'm just going to do that edge there. Bit of shade under that buckle there. And I'm also going to put some of that onto here. I want this to look like it might be a little bit old and tarnished. Maybe it's not gold, it could perhaps be brass or bronze or something different other than gold. But it's got a bit dirty and tarnished and old while it's been sitting here in the cave. And I want something a bit less red for this rum bottle, so I'm going to use light umber here. Now I did some texture in the alcohol marker here, so I don't want to cover all of that up, but want to give a hint of, you know, a bit more of a deeper colour there. And also, you know, all these things are sitting in a cave. They're not going to be the cleanest. They might be a bit grimy. I'll just use a bit of that on the boots as well. Help blend some of that over. Okay, now starting to come together a little bit better now. Let's just deepen up some of these colours where I've got suggesting gold or brass. In fact, what I might use, I quite like this, it's the Prismacolor Gold pencil. I actually quite like this pencil quite a bit. It gives a really nice bit of shine, but not as shiny as a gel pen, for example, but it does still have a shine. Quite like that, and that might be handy in here as well. I don't know what that's meant to be there. And I'm going to use that on those decorative bits there on the trunk. Might make that key a metallic black that I've got in this Sakura. I was thinking the writing on the rum bottle there, I'd like that to be red. Because I don't have a lot of other red in the picture, but it's just going to help give it that little bit of a lift. I did do that as a red gem, and I might do one of these as a red. So what I do with these is I do it harder and darker around the edges of the plane. You know, when a gem's been cut, it has different facets. So each of those planes or facets, I do darker around the outside, blending lightly towards the middle, and then I leave a bit of a white highlight on there. If I was doing a big one, I'd put a lot more effort into it than that, but this is so small, I don't feel like messing around with it too much is going to prove too useful. So the darker colour there is crimson red, and this lighter one is poppy red. And that has actually broken, but we'll use that as long as we can. So these are colours that I've picked up at different times, either open stock. And I also had, for a while, I had I think it was a 12 or maybe a 24 set of Prismacolor way back when. And these are just a few colours that are left out of that set. Make sure that they're like a emerald or something like that. And they're so small on part of the page that I just don't feel like they need to have too much time spent on them. That's enough to suggest what they are. Now I'm wondering, could that possibly be his rib cage showing there? You've got his neck or spine coming through there, and he's a skeleton, so I'm thinking that might be bones in there. So I'm going to do, this is 20% French grey. I'm just going to maybe suggest that they might be bones. white. I'm just going to make his teeth a little bit whiter. And bring in a little bit of highlight there. Just so that there's a bit of variation and it's not all flat. I'm also going to use a deeper red in here just to make that a little bit more detailed. So this is Tuscan Red from the Artex. And I'm just going to use that like a bit of a highlight. Shadow, not a highlight. And then I'm going to use a brighter one, Scarlet Red, just to make that a bit deeper. And I might use that on there as well. Not sure that it's actually achieving very much. Okay, so I might use a little bit of brown. So this is iron oxide brown, just to suggest a bit of a shadow there. Okay. The crab here, let's just brighten him up a little bit. Pale vermilion, just over the top of some of that marker there. Again, he's not the star of the story, so you know we don't need to draw too much attention to him. This is light peach. Just do a little bit around the place to warm things up a bit. Otherwise it's looking pretty flat with just all those beiges. What should I put around there? Gold maybe? Or red? I think maybe the red. This is the Ohuhu marker that I used yesterday. This is geranium. Still have no idea what colour I want to do that feather. And I feel like he would have a red bandana under there, so that little bit there is going to be red as well. Okay, we might put a bit of a red stripe along there. Maybe just because it would brighten things up, I might do something like this green. Parrot green. just so that it ties in with here a little bit better. And I really like the chartreuse in the Prismacolor. You can see how much I've liked this pencil. Just to put some highlights on the end of those bits of green. And we'll bring a little bit of that in down here as well. Almost could be like it's a bit of moss or algae or something growing on it, couldn't it? Maybe we'll put some of that into the metal as well then. Okay. Going to use a little bit. This is True Blue. True Blue from Artex, and I'm just going to use that to suggest that the gold bits on here are a little bit raised from the fabric of the cuff. So if the light source is coming from above, this side of it wouldn't have a shadow, it would just be underneath that would have the shadow of something that's raised, if the light source is, you know, above it. Not that you have to be precise about these things, but it just helps tell that little story and suggest where the light might be coming from. And this background needs a bit of texture into it as well. So this is 70% warm grey in the Artex. Again, you can see that this is a pencil that I use a fair bit of. I do have, you know, some colours that are really pretty much go-to colours for me, and I really do like the warmer tones of most colours. Even in my home I go for warmer colours over cooler colours. It's just a sort of natural preference that I have. Same for lighting. When you buy bulbs these days or get lighting, you get the choice of a warm light or cool light, or you know, daytime light, and I generally tend to go for warm lights. Unfortunately, that does give my videos here a bit of a warm tinge, or a yellow tinge, because I don't have a diffused light system. I'm just recording in my dining room, and it does give things a bit of a yellow cast, but that's what I feel most comfortable with. We did have some new lighting put in, and we tried the what's supposed to be classed as daylight setting, and it just felt to me like I was sitting in an office with fluorescent light. It wasn't pleasant to me of an evening to sit with that lighting, so it still had a very much of a blue or cool, you know, sort of hue to it. So we changed them back to the warm setting. So I touched on that a little bit yesterday about people having signature looks or signature colours that they use and styles and so on. You know, it affects all sorts of aspects of our life. And occasionally I do some pages that have a cooler colour scheme, but more often than not, if you look at which colours get used up first in my marker sets, or which colours get worn down in different pencil sets, you know, the theme is generally that they are leaning towards the warmer range of colours. And just grab that putty beige again, and with the putty beige I like to just create a few lighter patches as well. And what I like about the Prismacolor is when I'm using them over the top of the alcohol marker, and especially with the Artex pencil, the Prismacolor is very good at smooshing it all together and blending it without having to use a alcohol blender or a blender pencil. So you can see there I've now got some lighter, some mids, some darks, and I think we'll even go a little bit darker again with a bit of teeny bit of black in some areas. I don't want to use a lot of black. But sometimes, you know, you do need those little areas where you have the darkest of dark. Shade, so it sends everything else forward. And you know how quite often with the opening of a cave where there's a light out, you know, where it's light outside, the opening will look the darkest because there's just, you're blinded by the light that's outside here. Now, if you're selective about where you put those darkest of darks, you're going to get the biggest payoff, you know, for impact. If If I did black everywhere, then there would be very little impact from that. I need slightly deeper, just for behind some of these. This is green ochre, Prismacolor green ochre, and I'm just going to lightly suggest that they're just behind. This again is one of those sort of nondescript colours that doesn't really fit into a brown. It's not a green, it's not an ochre, it's sort of everything, all of those things mixed together at once. Now if I was really professional, I'd have a brush here and I'd be brushing those little crumbs away with a soft brush, but I'm not that person. When I'm colouring here on my own, I wouldn't be doing it, so I pretty much show you on screen how I would be colouring if I was sitting here on my own. I quite often watch people that have much more professional setups, and you know, they're very organised, they have their swatch books, everything's nice and neat and tidy and so on, and I really wish I was that person, but I'm really missing having that space to be able to be that well organised. But quite often I'm here at the kitchen, well, dining room table, or I'm on the couch. I've got a little trolley, one of those IKEA trolleys that I keep all my commonly used items are on. You know, things that I use on a regular basis, and the books that I'm working in and so on, they're all on that little trolley that comes around the house with me. But all of my other stuff is currently packed away. And I watch some of these people and I just think, oh gee, you know, I should make the effort into, put the effort in to look a little bit more polished like that, but it wouldn't change the way I colour. It wouldn't change my results at all. It would just look, you know, look like I've got my act together a little bit more than I have. But you know, this is the way it is at the moment. Okay, I think he's pretty much getting close to the end here. I would use all the, you know, the metallic gel pens and so on as the final touch, because I have a habit of then going and sticking my hand in the wet ink. Okay, so we've got some pearls down here. I'm actually just going to use a bit of beige on those, I think. I'm not going to be fussy at trying to blend those. They're so small and an inconsequential part of the design that I'm not going to worry about trying to blend those little tiny things. Let's have a think before I go getting these metallic things out. Just have a quick look through the camera. It's looking pretty good. I think maybe one of the favourite things I like to do for the shadows is this Delft Blue, which is a Faber-Castell Polychromos. I like to use a little bit of that. It's almost like a purple. And I find for shadowed areas, it just gives a bit more of a bit of life to those dark shadows. You know, instead of being total black voids, it just has a bit more life to it. We'll do that on his hat as well. Sometimes it's hard to quantify in words why you make these decisions, but it comes of using your materials over and over and over, that it becomes second nature to pick up some of these colours, because you just know you've used them so many times in the past, and you've liked the results, so you just keep reaching for them without too much conscious thinking. Okay, so I have Sakura Jelly Roll Metallics here. My gold is almost run out, so we'll see how much we can eke out of this. But I'm just going to put a bit of gold on here so that we have a bit of sparkle. When the book is moved, it will reflect the light a bit more. I never did quite work out what those things are. I think they're flaps on a pocket, but if they're not, that's what I have decided they are. I've got one of those rare moments at the moment where there is no sound at all coming from outside. It's amazingly quiet. Probably jinx myself saying that, but so I'm just going to start doing a few little areas around the place that I want to reflect a bit of shine. There we go, there's voices now. I knew that it wouldn't last for too long. I have a neighbour who's a lovely lady. She's a Greek lady. And she's very, very generous. She's very helpful with her time. but she does like to have a chin wag. And she's only a little tiny lady, but she has the biggest voice sometimes. And you quite often hear her chatting to people that are walking up the street, and you can pick out most of the conversation because she's so loud. But she's a lovely lady. She looks out for everybody. We're lucky that we have somebody like that in our street who's, you know, interested in what people are doing and are worried for you if she doesn't see you for a couple of days. She also grows some nice things in her garden that we partake in, like figs and loquats, pomegranates, and then we've got grapefruit, mandarin and lemon trees, so we tend to share what we have too much of with her. And it's good. Okay, this is the black metallic that I said that I like to use sometimes, and I'm going to use that on the key. So it's black metallic, but it comes out more like a pewter or deep grey rather than black, but it just reflects the sun, the light off on it nicely. And I'm going to use the silver on the buckle. I decided that that grey marker was just a little bit too dull and a bit too flat. I'm going to put a few bits of silver around the place. And I've decided that I might use the silver on here. I don't normally like to colour such a big area with a metallic pen, but I don't actually have any silver metallic paint. I do have a pen that would probably be better than this, but it's not to hand at the moment, of course. And then might actually make some of these coins. They were all gold, but maybe I'll go over some of these as silver as well. And I might put some silver on there. And that's probably about it. I'll leave those little details white, I think. I'm going to just put a bit of colour on the sword here. This is Cool Grey 50%. because that grey did dry very, very light. But I'm thinking that the sword might be a little bit rough and ready after being sitting in an old cave. So I might actually put a little bit of rust on there. So I'm going to use yellow ochre and a bit of goldenrod. They're both Artex. And a little bit of burnt ochre as well. And then to top that off, this is iron oxide brown, just a little bit of brown. And you can see I'm not being very careful about that, it's just random. And I'll do a little bit of that in here. Just to darken up around that key. And that background there. It's not really for any other reason than to actually make it look a little bit sort of dirty and grungy. And I'm just, you know, randomly squiggling some of that stuff. Same with his skull here. He's worse for wear. I'm pretty much done here. This is aubergine purple. Just to deepen up some of those areas. Like brown would have made, a dark brown may have made that a bit dull, whereas the aubergine's got that little bit of red and purple look to it, so it just is warming it up a fraction. Same within these shadowy bits. So you can see what I mean about it's darkening it up, giving you the illusion of shadows and so on. But where black sort of deadens and flattens everything, the use of the purples or the blues, the greens and so on, gives you that darkness, but it makes it alive. And you know, gold against purple is going to look a lot more vibrant than gold against black. It's something to do with those complementary colours that play off of each other. If you think like yellow and purple play off of each other, so therefore gold or yellow, golden hues are going to look alive and vibrant against an aubergine purple, for example, over a black, because they're complementary to each other, that they just give each other that boost that something against black is just not going to do. Okay, I'm starting to just fiddle about a bit too much with some of this stuff now, so I think I might call this done. And hopefully I've got enough contrast going here now that you can see what I mean about the difference it makes when you put light and darks in, when you get brave enough to you know, move away from safe mid-tones. Because I have gone so dark there, that just looks a little bit too stark, so I'm just going to put some more. No, putty beige isn't going to do it. Let's get that green ochre back out. And now I will come back with the putty beige and just smoosh that together. Okay, you could keep fiddling with these things forever, and then you get to the point where you know that you've overdone it and you should have stopped like 10 minutes ago. So there we go, we've ended up with another hour out of this. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing me finish that page. Sorry, I'm just trying to get that to refocus for you. There we go. So we've got lots of shiny metallics. We've got flat areas. We've got a bit of shine happening on some of the pencil anyway, where I've worked on the pencil very deeply. You can see all those texture lines and marks very close up there. But when you look at it at a reasonable distance, visually that blends. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed colouring it. He was a bit tricky for some of these details in here, but we got there in the end, I think, or I hope. So there's the cover of that book, Pirates by RJ Hampson, one of his earlier books. And on this side here it's called Hidden. A lifetime wasted filling up a purse, laughing at the rumours of a curse. But when the truth is told, your soul will shrink with cold. There's no warmth in all the money that you nurse. So he puts a little verse up with all of these pages, or little ditties or whatever, which is kind of fun. So I'm going to leave that there. I'll just show you again what I've used. We've used Ohuhu. Is that going to focus on there? Ohuhu alcohol markers. I have the 200 set. I've used Prismacolor pencils, the Prismacolor white, some Artex pencils, and the Odd Polychromos, and Sakura Jelly Roll Metallics. So there you go. I hope you have enjoyed this page. And let me know, have you got any pirate related books that you perhaps might use to join in on this hashtag as well? It's Pirates for Poet on Instagram, and I'll put the details in the description box. Okay, thanks again guys. I'll see you in the next video really soon. Bye now.